Good afternoon, students. For anybody who might have missed the lesson, or maybe who just didn't get it and went by too fast, I wanted to record a lesson for Monday, November the 9th. So in your writing journal, the do now was slipped into all of your journals. The do now looked like this. It was describe a time when you were really angry. What were you angry about? How did it resolve? When were you in the moment? When you were in the moment of being angry, what was happening with your body? What did your face look like? Now, this is going to tie in with the lesson that we're going to do today. So insert a text box because this is text protected. You cannot access this. I've made it as a backdrop. Take a moment now, pause, and answer the question. All right. So if you've done what you were supposed to, you've paused the show. You've paused this lesson and you've gone and you've completed your do now. And now you're going back to the lesson. Now, in the second part of the question, it asks you when you were in the moment of being angry, what was happening with your body and what did your face look like? And I asked you those specifically because when you describe those things as opposed to just saying I was mad, what you're doing is you're giving your reader a vivid description of what was happening. Instead of just conveying the emotion with your words, you're conveying it with description. It's a bit more powerful to convey with description. Now, what we're talking about today and what the lesson is today is taking your writing from two-dimensional or 2D writing to three-dimensional or 3D writing. Now, you see the image over here. This is two-dimensional. It goes up and it goes across, but it doesn't have any kind of depth. There's nothing wrong with that circle, it just doesn't pop off the page. Whereas this image right here, it goes across and it goes up and down, but it also has the illusion of having depth. It also has the illusion of popping out of the page. Now, I want your writing to also pop off the page and not be boring and not be flat like this two-dimensional image. So a two-dimensional description would say, as the two girls talked, I felt uncomfortable. I didn't know what to do, uncomfortable. So as a writer, you can just tell your readers what to think. You can just tell your readers what your character is doing, what your character is feeling, or you can describe for your readers what your character is feeling by describing what their body is doing. We've all heard of body language before, and we know certain aspects or certain elements of body language communicate what's thinking. My mom, I know when my mom is mad, she starts to look up the side, starts to tap her fingers when she's annoyed and mad. I know it. The minute she does that, I'm like, oh, my mom is mad. I know that, right? So people have certain behaviors that they do when they feel certain emotions. A lot of people, when they are upset, they do not like to cry. But when the tears are threatening to drop, they look up, they might like pull their eyelids, they might blink in order to absorb the tears because for whatever reason, we've learned that crying is not good. So if you were to describe those to your reader instead of she was sad, your reader would get that she was sad. It's kind of like playing charades. The audience or the people who you're doing your charade for don't know the word, but you have to communicate the word with your body. When you do that in writing, it's much more powerful. Now, here's an example, a three-dimensional example. As the two girls talked, the room felt really hot. I wish I had worn a lighter shirt. This one was making me sweat. I looked down at my phone, checking for text messages that weren't there. Then I noticed how dirty it was and made myself concentrate on slowly cleaning the screen with the bottom of my shirt. Otherwise, I would be awkwardly stuck in the middle of this conversation. So these are behaviors that someone is doing to communicate that they are uncomfortable. If you've ever stepped into an elevator and you're like you and one other person or you and two other person, super uncomfortable, right? So people they look at the ceiling, they look at the thing, they might bring up silly weather, they might fidget, they might pretend to do something on their phone so that they don't have to engage this stranger in that uncomfortableness. You describe uncomfortableness instead of just saying and spoon feeding your reader, here, she was sad, she was happy, she was uncomfortable. Your reader will get tired of you spoon feeding emotions to them. So you want to describe. Here's a description. The temperature fell and the ice reflected on the sun. Reflected the sun, sorry. versus three-dimensional. Bill's nose burned in the frigid air, and he squinted against the sun reflecting off the street. Now, if you've ever gone out on a sunny day after it has snowed, you know that sun will burn your retinas when it blinds you off, but yet at the same exact time, you're super, super cold. So this description really puts us in the moment versus just tells us. Now, how do we do this? So the first step, and something I want you to consider, we're really zeroing in on emotion words. We're really zeroing in on words like happy, sad, frustrated, annoyed. And so we have a list of description of words that describe emotion: happy, sad, angry, frustrated, excited, giddy, love, anxious, joy, disgust. These are all great words, and they're not wrong. However, they're kind of unexciting. So instead, we describe with body language. One of the best ways you can show and not tell in writing is to use strong descriptive language when it comes to bodies. A person's actions are really a gateway to their mind and how they feel. You can tell a person has a crush on someone just by paying attention to the way their body adjusts when the person walks in the room. Think of what you do in certain situations when you're nervous, excited, scared, happy. We've all heard the term butterflies in my stomach. When your butterflies are up, we got butterflies, you're nervous. It means your stomach is kind of churning a little bit. What do you feel physically in your body? How does your body react? And draw from that what you know in order to describe for your reader. So, for example, and this is only 3 little words, but they are powerful. In the story, Sarah the Brave, we know Sarah wants to be seen as older by her parents. We know she is excited to bring her sister Julie to school. In the morning, while the kids are getting ready for breakfast, Mom pours the cereal, calls them kittens, and says she's bringing Julie to school. Sarah's jaw clenched, and you see it right below there in yellow. Sarah's jaw clenched. It doesn't say she was happy, it doesn't say she was mad, doesn't say she was upset. All that happened was her jaw clenched. And if you know anything about being mad, you clench your teeth. Some people clench their hands. Some people do this with their thumb. Oh my goodness. Oh, those are all behaviors associated with being upset about something. And then it goes on to say she was not a kitten. Maybe Julie was a kitten. She was a lioness. Why wasn't her mother? Nowhere does it say Sarah's upset. Nowhere. We as a reader have to put that together. And so I want you in your story to utilize these steps versus just telling us how someone was sad or someone was upset or someone was frustrated. Now I'm going to have you practice, and I had my students who were present practice in their journals. I slipped in 2 example pages. And as you can see, I left my examples here. One is Bailey was happy, and the other Bailey was shocked. So what is someone's face doing when they're happy? How can you communicate? How can you describe for your reader Bailey was happy without using the word happy at all? Bailey's eyes lit up and the corners of his mouth turned, and he let out a laugh. That would be happy. Bailey's whole face relaxed, and his smile became so bright it overshadowed the sun. Bailey was happy. Now, Bailey was shocked. Think about what someone does with their body or face when they're shocked. Look at what's happening with my face right now. If you describe that, Bailey's eyes widened, his mouth dropped open, and he covered his mouth with his hand. That's shocked. That's, oh my gosh, maybe they cover their chest like, oh my gosh, scared, shocked. Those are behaviors associated with that emotion, with that feeling. So rather than describing it, rather than just saying the word, you describe it. So practice capturing, pause this right now, practice capturing in your journal, practice capturing happy and sad with physical descriptions. Now, how did you do at trying your hand at using vivid descriptions to describe what was happening with your characters, with Bailey? Here we've got Bailey was happy, a gigantic grin spread across Bailey's face, and her eyes lit up like a campfire on a cold day. Bailey was shocked, or Bella was shocked. Bella couldn't help herself. Her jaw dropped to the floor as her eyebrows shot up towards the ceiling. There's a couple more examples, and this is all going to be linked for you to use as a reference. She was excited to see her dad. When she saw her dad enter the gym, she sprinted across the room, jumped into his arms, and buried her face in his chest. That for sure is a description of excitement. And then he felt sad. An ache started deep in his stomach. He turned away as his eyes welled up with tears. In none of those descriptions do they actually use the emotion word. The reader puts two and two together. That's what you want to do. As a reader, I want to be in I want to see how an author cleverly describes things to me, rather than just spoon feeds things to me. Now we're going to watch a little video real quick about the pitchfork method, and then I'm going to have you try. I really like that detail. You want the reader to see things as you do. You want to control what your reader sees. You want to control how happy comes across your character, or how sad, or how the emotion of anger comes across for your character. That is all your job as the writer. And so to just say he was angry, he was sad, he was upset, kind of leaves the writer or the reader in the position of having to create that in their mind. So you want to create it. All right, and that is what your task is right now. You're going to go back into your writing journal and you're going to pitchfork this sentence. We've got Tyson felt sad, and then Tyson felt excited to see his best friend after 2 weeks apart. So, how can you pitchfork? And in this case, you get to say the word, but you expand on the word. So, you get to say sad, but then you get to show us sad with some examples similar to that first one. I stood in the field stamping, waiting, and shivering. Tyson felt sad. He did what, and what? What are three more verbs that you can add that he did? He blinked away the tears. He wiped away, he wiped his nose, and he turned away so no one could see his tears falling. Something like that. The second one is Tyson was excited to see his best friends after 2 weeks apart. What were the three things that Tyson did? Did he give him a hug? Did he call him right away? Did he high five him? Did he bro hug him? Did he tackle him? What would Tyson do that would show how he's excited to see his best friend? So add three prongs to the fork of this sentence, expanding what you see happening between these two friends. Then your last plan is to go into your story and find a minimum. Now, if you're really working on this story and you really want to get a great grade, you're not going to get a great grade. You're not going to stop at 2. You're going to really keep pushing. But find a minimum of 2 spots in the story where you can add in the vivid description, add in the emotion descriptions without actually saying the emotion, or add in the pitchfork. You can try one of each. If one seems to work a little bit better, you can do 2 of the same one. I challenge you to do one of each at least. Try the body language or the pitchfork approach. When you make the change, please highlight them so it draws attention to them in your draft. And then lastly, it's super important that you understand that drafts are due this weekend. Many times people are giving me things late, and things cannot be late next week because I need these by the 13th in order to have everybody's graded by the 20th, because I have 100 and something students and I'm reading stories that are like 3 to 4 pages long. So I really need these on time. So please plan that you are turning these in this weekend so I have time to be grading them starting this weekend and through the week in order to give you my undivided attention and valuable feedback and if anybody's crashing and burning, there's a little bit of time for me to help that person get it back together. But many of you have beautiful, beautiful stories. And next class, we will talk about what I'll be looking for, and we'll look at the rubric as well. All righty. I hope that helps for anybody who missed class or just needed a refresher. And I'll see you next time. Happy writing.